Alright, this is now the 6th take that I'm doing this stupid shit. Alright, we're gonna read The Cult of Homework by Joe Pinsker, published on March 28th, 29. Oh, fucking hell. You gotta be kidding me. That fuck. Fuck it. Okay, I'm gonna try to calm down. America's devotion to the practice stems in part from the fact that it's what today's parents and teachers grew up with themselves. I'm going to try to do less commentary and more just reading. If I release some commentary in the process of reading, so be it. America has long had a fickle relationship with homework. A century or so ago, progressive reformers argued that it made kids unduly stressed, which later led in some cases to district-level bans on it for all grades under 7th. This anti-homework sentiment faded, though, amid mid-century fears that the US was falling behind the Soviet Union, which led to more homework, only to resurface in the 1960s and 70s, when a more open culture came to see homework as stifling play and creativity, which led to less. But this didn't last either. In the 80s, government researchers blamed America's schools for its economic troubles and recommended ramping homework up once more. The 21st century has so far been a homework-heavy era, with American teenagers now averaging about twice as much time spent on homework each day as their predecessors did in the 1990s. Even little kids are asked to bring... I keep on saying being asked. Even little kids are asked to bring school home with them. A 2015 study, for instance, found that kindergartners, who researchers tend to agree shouldn't have any take-home work, were spending about 25 minutes a night on it. But not without pushback. As many children, not to mention their parents and teachers, are drained by their daily workload. Some schools and districts are rethinking of how homework should work, and some teachers are doing away with it entirely. They're reviewing the research on homework, which it should be noted is contested, and concluding that it's time to revisit the subject. Hillsborough, California, an affluent suburb of San Francisco, is one district that has changed its ways. The district, which includes 3 elementary schools and a middle school, worked with teachers and convened panels of parents in order to come up with a homework policy that would allow students more unscheduled time to spend with their families or to play. In August 2017, it rolled out an updated policy, which emphasized that homework should be meaningful and banned due dates that fell on the day after a weekend or a break. Anyone that fucking does that now are jackasses. Assigning homework that's due day after a fucking break or day after a goddamn weekend. We have shit to do, that's our fucking free time. Anyways, the first year was a bit bumpy, says Luann Carlamagna, district superintendent. She says the adjustment was at times hard for the teachers, some of whom have been doing their job in a similar fashion for a quarter of a century. Parents' expectations were also an issue. Carlamagna says it took some time to realize that it was okay not to have an hour of homework for a 2nd grader. That was new. I don't know how they wanted to say that, or how she wanted to say it. Most of the way through year 2, though, the policy appears to be working more smoothly. The students do seem to be less stressed based on conversations I've had with parents, Carlamagna says. It also helps that students performed just as well on the state standardized test last year as they have in the past. Earlier this year, the District of Somerville, Massachusetts, also rewrote its homework policy, reducing the amount of homework its elementary and middle schoolers may receive. In grades 6 through 8, for example, homework is capped at an hour a night and can only be assigned 2 to 3 times a week. Sorry, better not be a fucking night. Jack Schneider, an education professor at the University of Massachusetts at Lowell, whose daughter attends school in Somerville, is generally pleased with the new policy, but he says, it's part of a bigger worrisome pattern. The origin for this was general parental dissatisfaction, which not surprisingly was coming from a particular demographic. Snyder says, the way that I said that was stupid. Middle-class white parents tend to be more vocal about concerns about homework. They feel entitled enough to voice their opinions. Honestly, either the author or the people speaking in the quotes they need to fix their fucking grammars. They're teachers too, so fucking hell. Snyder is all for revisiting taken for granted practices like homework, but thinks districts need to take care to be inclusive in that process. I hear approximately 0 middle-class white parents talking about how homework done best in grades K through 2 actually strengthens the connection between home and school for young people and their families, he says. Because many of these parents already feel connected to their school community, this benefit of homework can seem redundant. They don't need it, Snyder says, so they're not advocating for it. That doesn't mean necessarily that homework is more vital in low-income districts. In fact, there are different but just as compelling reasons it can be burdensome in these communities as well. Allison Weinhold, who teaches high school Spanish in a small... Son of a bitch, let me repeat that. Allison Weinhold, who teaches high school Spanish in the small town of Dunkerson, Iowa, has faced out homework assignments over the past 3 years. For thinking, some of her students, she says, have little time for homework because they're working 30 hours a week or responsible for looking after younger siblings. As educators reduce or eliminate the homework they assign, it's worth asking the amount and what kind of homework is best for students. It turns out that there's some disagreement among this from researchers. Let me repeat that. It turns out that there's some disagreement about this among researchers, who tend to fall in one of two camps. In the first camp is Harris Cooper, a professor of psychology and neuroscience at Duke University. Cooper conducted a review of the existing research on homework in the mid-2000s, and found that, up to a point, the amount of homework students reported doing correlates with their performance on in-class tests. This correlation, the review found, was stronger for older students than for younger ones. This conclusion is generally accepted among educators, in part because it's compatible with the 10-minute rule, a rule of thumb popular among teachers suggesting that the proper amount of homework is approximately 10 minutes per night per grade level. That is, 10 minutes a night for the first graders, doesn't say the 20 minutes a night for second graders, and so on, up to 2 hours a night for high schoolers. In Cooper's eyes, homework isn't overly burdensome for the typical American kid. He points to a 2014 Brookings Institution report that found little evidence that the homework load has increased for the average student. Onerous amounts of homework, it determined, are indeed out there, but relatively rare. Moreover, the report noted that most parents think their children get the right amount of homework, and that parents who are worried about under-assigning outnumber those who are worried about over-assigning. Cooper says that those latter worries tend to come from a small number of communities with concerns about being competitive for the most selective colleges and universities. Basically what my fucking school did. Those bastards, for the past 4 years of my entire high school career, I'm not in high school anymore, thank God, they mainly focus on trying to get us into the best schools possible, while best schools being SDSU, UCSD, and all the other universities and colleges in San Diego alone. But then again, they were also top schools in the fucking nation, so they were definitely going to be just as selective as what this thing is talking about. So what they did is, during these 4 years, they would do whatever it takes to, I guess, get done with the prerequisites, or add more to your quote-unquote college resume or some shit. They focus on college way too damn much to where it took up more time trying to talk about and concern ourselves with college than it did for the general education. We focus way too damn much on college, way too damn much on GPA, way too damn much on resumes, way too damn much on letters to fucking colleges, on getting recommendations, getting, I don't know, just focusing way too damn much on college. Well, let's continue. According to Alfie Kohn, squarely in Camp 2, most of the conclusions listed in the previous 3 paragraphs are questionable. Kohn, the author of The Homework Myth, Why Our Kids Get Too Much of a Bad Thing, considers homework to be a reliable extinguisher of curiosity, and has several complaints with the evidence that Cooper and others cite in favor of it. Kohn notes, among other things, that Cooper's 2006 meta-analysis doesn't establish causation, and that its central correlation is based on children's potentially unreliable self-reporting of how much time they spend doing homework. Cohn's prolific writing on the subject alleges numerous other methodological faults. I swear that word always gets me. In fact, other correlations make a compelling case that homework doesn't help. Some countries whose students regularly outperform American kids on standardized tests, such as Japan and Denmark, send their kids home with less schoolwork, while students from other countries with higher homework loads than the US, such as Thailand and Greece, fare worse on tests. Of course, international comparisons can be fraught because so many factors in education systems and in societies at large might shape students' success. Basically what they were trying to say was, the more homework that a student will be assigned, the shittier their performance will be on standardized tests. Whereas vice versa, the less homework that they receive, the more better that they'll do on standardized tests. Because I feel like they would have less of a reason to cheat Mainly because the more homework you have, the more stressed you're gonna be, and the more unorganized everyone's gonna be, inevitably, because there's way too much fucking homework to deal with. Way too much homework, way too much redundant shit, way too much complicated shit, way too much work, stresses us the fuck out, takes too much time out of our fucking lives to do, and sometimes the most we might not get it because of the goddamn curriculum and the way that it was taught initially. Cohn also takes issue with the way achievement is commonly assessed. If all you want is to cram kids' heads with facts for tomorrow's tests that they're going to forget by next week, yeah, if you give them more time and make them do the cramming at night, that could raise the scores, he says. But if you're interested in kids who know how to think or enjoy learning, then homework isn't merely ineffective, but counterproductive. I like this guy's thinking, basically saying that it's counterproductive to do homework for this shit. Because I do enjoy thinking, or not enjoy thinking, I did have to develop my own way of thinking. I did not have the school develop it in any way, because they didn't want me to develop my own way. I was like, fuck you guys, I'm going my own way anyways. But I did not enjoy learning one bit. They made learning so fucking boring for me. I honestly don't think I'm gonna function normally in schools anymore. So I'm honestly gonna hate the shit out of the teachers, and most likely if I get exposed to their certain policies or certain rules or some shit, to figure out the usual types of professional brutes, then I might get even more pissed off at them, and some or most cases I might lash out at them, verbally and loudly. That's why I do not like school, nor am I gonna try to go in one anytime soon, no matter what people say. His concern is, in a way, a philosophical one. The practice of homework assumes that only academic growth matters, to the point that having kids work on that most of the school day isn't enough, Cohn says. What about homework's effect on quality time spent with family, on long-term information retention, on critical thinking skills, on social development, on success later in life, on happiness? The research is quiet on these questions. Fucking hell. I swear, I don't know what causes these damn burps, but excuse me for that one. Another problem is that research tends to focus on homework's quantity rather than its quality, because the former is much easier to measure than the latter. Because the former is much easier to measure than the latter. I don't know why that sounded weird to me. While experts generally agree that the substance of an assignment matters greatly. Why did I pause there a little bit? Let me repeat that. While experts generally agree that the substance of an assignment matters greatly, and that a lot of homework is uninspiring busy work, there isn't a catch-all rule for what's best. The answer is often specific to a certain curriculum, or even an individual student. Very, very, very fucking correct. Because not all curriculums, not all classrooms, not all students, not all people, not all things are the fucking same. Where the fuck was I? Given that homework's benefits are so narrowly defined, and even then, contested, it's a bit surprising that assigning so much of it is often a classroom default, and that more isn't done to make the homework that is assigned more enriching. A number of things are preserving this state of affairs, things that have little to do with whether homework helps students learn. Jack Snyder, the Massachusetts parent and professor, I swear Massachusetts, that's the weirdest fucking name, thinks it's most important to consider the generational inertia of the practice. The vast majority of parents of public school students themselves are graduates of the public education system, he says. Therefore, their views of what is legitimate have been shaped already by the system that they would ostensibly be critiquing. In other words, many parents' own history with homework might lead them to expect the same for their children, and anything less is often taken as an indicator that a school or a teacher isn't rigorous enough. Now see, those types of parents can go fuck themselves. And if you're that type of parent that's listening to this, fuck you! This dovetails with, and complicates, the finding that most parents think their children have the right amount of homework. Again, most fucking children in the United States don't have the right amount of homework. They have still way too much fucking homework. And stop trying to average the shit out of these fucking kids. Not everyone's the fucking same. Not every place is the fucking same. Not every town, not every school, not every district is the fucking same. No one is the fucking same. Stop treating them like an average. Stop treating them like they're the same. They're not the fucking same. This is why we need more individualized we need more individualization amongst people. We need more people that are independent and encouraged to be independent. Honestly, just to tell these fucking teenagers that all their teachers are full of shit. All of them. They shouldn't trust any fucking teachers but themselves. They should research shit on their own without any teacher's help. Just do things on your own. That's basically is what I'm trying to advocate and will always advocate for. Do shit on your own. Don't rely on other people. Don't rely on other people's thinking. Don't rely on other people's service. Don't rely on other people's work. Don't rely on other people, period. Focus and rely on yourself and yourself only. Because everyone is fucking selfish whether they like to admit it or not. Because logically speaking, you're always going to be selfish because otherwise you'd be dead. So there's no way of saying, oh, I'm a selfless motherfucker. I'm never going to say I'm a selfless motherfucker. I'm close to being selfless, but I'm not actually a selfless motherfucker. I'm more selfless than selfish. But inevitably, I'm gonna be selfish. Because I have to fucking live, okay? So that's just the usual basic natural type shit is what I'm talking about in terms of being selfish. Because they're not really including that in their studies. Like, I don't know why these fucking teachers don't realize that philosophy actually helps with learning. Like, I realized long ago that philosophy is what I wanted to go for because I'm mainly interested in deep learning, deep thinking. I tend to think, learn, and say deep shit. More so when I'm pissed off or when I'm pretty knowledgeable about something or someone brought up a good point and it reminded me of a couple things. Like, it's just sort of like a variable moment, or I'm already forgetting what the fuck I was talking about. Anyways, Barbara Stengel, an education professor at Vanderbilt University's Peabody College, brought up two developments in the educational system that might be keeping homework rote and unexciting. The first is the importance placed in the past few decades on standardized testing, which looms over many public school classroom decisions and frequently discourages teachers from trying out more creative homework assignments. They could do it, but they're afraid to do it because they're getting pressure every day about test scores, Stengel says. In any fucking district that fucking crows the teachers for test scores every goddamn day, that district or that organization deserves to be burned to the fucking ground. Because fuck test scores, fuck GPAs, fuck standardized tests, and fuck the SATs, fuck any sort of test whatsoever. All tests are fucking stupid. Fucking worrying about quantity or quality. That was a little bit of a spoiler for what's gonna be read next. Not next, but in a little bit. Second, she notes that the profession of teaching, with its relatively low wages and lack of autonomy, struggles to attract and support some of the people who might reimagine homework, as well as other aspects of education. Part of why we get less interesting homework is because some of the people who would have really pushed the limits of that are no longer in teaching, she says. In general, we have no imagination when it comes to homework, Stengel says. She wishes teachers had the time and resources to remake homework into something that actually engages students. If we had kids reading anything, the sports page, anything that they're able to read, that's the best single thing. If we had kids going to the zoo, if we had kids going to parks at the school, if we had them doing all those things, their test scores would improve. But they're not. They're going home and doing homework that is not expanding what to think about. Exploratory is one word Mike Simpson used when describing the types of homework he'd like his students to undertake. Simpson is head of the Stone Independent School, a tiny private high school in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, that opened in 2017. We're lucky to start a school a year and a half ago, Simpson says. So it's been easy to say we aren't going to assign worksheets, we aren't going to assign regurgitative problem sets. For instance, a half dozen students recently built a 25-foot trebuchet on campus. You know how fun that would be if my school did that, or any of the San Diego schools did that, or any California schools for that matter. Because it doesn't sound like it's legally possible to do that with students. But then again, I don't really know how the fuck the rules are for Pennsylvania. It might be different for Pennsylvania than for here. Obviously it is different because it's two different fucking states. It just sounds illegal to me because I've never heard of any school that was able to build a fucking catapult on campus. That's literally the dream of almost every fucking teenage boy or kid or boy or whatever the fuck. Any guy of any age would love to build a fucking catapult or a trebuchet. So Simpson says he thinks it's a shame that the things students have to do at home are often the least fulfilling parts of schooling. When our students can't make the connection between the work they're doing at 11 o'clock at night on a Tuesday to the way they want their lives to be, I think we begin to lose the plot, because we do spend a lot of fucking hours, a lot of fucking, basically no sleeping sessions sometimes. I had no sleep sessions when I was sort of cramming down homework that I forgot to do or didn't have much motivation to do sooner, I should say. So I do all-nighters, and a lot of other people did all-nighters as well, and sometimes they did it really fucking late at night, and it was just really fucking tormenting. When I talked with other teachers who did homework makeovers in their classrooms, I heard few regrets. Brandy Young, a second grade teacher in Joshua, Texas, stopped assigning take-home packets of worksheets 3 years ago, and instead started asking her students to do 20 minutes of pleasure reading a night. She says she's pleased with the results, but she's noticed something funny. Some kids, she says, really do like homework. She started putting out a bucket of it for students to draw from voluntarily, whether because they want an additional challenge or something to pass the time at home. Chris Bronk, a high school English teacher in the Chicago suburb of Downers Grove, told me something similar. This year, he limited homework for his class of freshmen, and now mostly lets students study on their own or in small groups during class time. It's usually up to them what they want to work on each day, and Bronk has been impressed by how they've managed their time. In fact, some of them willingly spend time on assignments at home, whether because they're particularly engaged, because they prefer to do some deeper thinking outside school, or because they need to spend time in class that day preparing for, say, a biology test the following period. So he's not requiring schoolwork? I don't fucking know what he's trying to do here. But, in fact, some of them willingly spend time with their... Okay, I already read that part. It's after following period. They're making meaningful decisions about their time that I don't think education really ever gives students the experience nor the practice of doing, Bronk said. The typical prescription offered by those overwhelmed with homework is to assign less of it, to subtract. But perhaps a more useful approach for many classrooms would be to create homework only when teachers and students believe it's actually needed to further the learning that takes place in class. To start with nothing and add as necessary. Is that the entire article? Yes, that's the entire article. I did that way less than I had done previously, which is good because it makes it easy on fucking editing. Alright, this is Works for 2 and 3, signing out, bitches.